You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
All right, welcome back to the Investor Shed podcast. My name's Nick Beveridge here with my co-host, the man with all the lights, Jeremy Kitchen.
Man, Nick, I have so many lights. I hope you people at home understand how many lights I have on me at one time. I'm baking in the sun here.
He's not kidding.
How are you doing?
I feel so bad for the people that are just listening to the audio only, and they can't understand just how entertaining some of these videos can be.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. I got plans to redo my podcast studio here. We're going to do some painting and a new desk and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are really going to enjoy it. You know, the 90% that just listen to the audio only are going to really miss out.
They're going to miss out on a very pasty Jeremy. Speaking of pasty, we got Marco Kozlowski on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, Marco was a wealth of knowledge. I know we say that a lot, but holy crap, this guy has got a lot going on. This guy's got 24 years of experience investing in real estate. He has some huge ups, a very big crash down.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna, holy crap. Yeah. Talks about going homeless, getting in a fight with one of his tenants.
Yeah, it was a wild ride for sure. I loved it.
This was a wild one.
But he also had a bunch of, again, like you said, a wealth of knowledge, and he was willing to share and willing to help. And I love that he's living to serve now. Like, investing is still important to him, but he wants to help others, and it's just been really cool hearing his journey.
Yes, you're going to enjoy it. So, buckle up, drink some coffee, skip breakfast this morning, and enjoy this podcast.
Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Investor Shed podcast. I'm Nick Beveridge here with my co-host Jeremy Kitchen. Good morning.
Top of the morning, Nick. How we doing today?
Doing great. Let's get into it. Our guest today, Marco fuck. I knew it.
That's not my last name.
Screwed
but
me
it's
up.
Pretty close. It's pretty close.
Kozlowski. Good morning.
Good morning.
Marco Kozlowski. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's
I
good
screw up
enough.
everybody's
I've
name.
been called a lot worse. Been divorced twice, so you can call me anything. I have no feelings left.
I love it. Marco, thanks so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate you taking time to join Nick and I on the Investor Shed podcast. Before we get into the investing details, can you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what got you started into real estate and just your upbringing, and if you don't mind?
Sure. I'm originally from Canada, which is north of New York, and Canadian. I got married. I was a concert pianist. That's my background, is in music. So nothing high finance or, fancy. And I was broke as a concert pianist. I got married when I was 18, had 4 kids at 24, and I was a stay-at-home dad. And I was responsible for taking care of the kids and trying to make a couple bucks. And my spouse was doing the work. And we weren't very good at managing money. And I had financial problems and a lot of kids. And I don't know if you know the number one cause of divorce. When anyone want to guess on that, it's marriage. It's definitely marriage. Definitely 100% marriage. Yeah, marriage. All joking aside, it was really strenuous, and I really wanted a better life. And I actually saw an infomercial on buying real estate back in the early 90s, mid 90s, Carlton Sheets. I don't know if you even know who that is, but I was a sheet head, digested that material. None of it really worked in Canada, so I started looking into how I could do stuff in the U.S. as a Canadian. And I didn't have any money, didn't have any credit, didn't have the ability to really borrow money. So I had to get really creative very quickly. Bought my first property in 99, which was a few days ago, 1999. In the 1900s, I bought my first property. And I've been at this a long time. Yes, come along the fire.
24 years ago.
24 years ago, yes. And from there, went into going to a lot of seminars and education, a lot of great ones, a lot of terrible ones. Reinvested in myself, my education. That was the most important thing, because I knew the more I learned, the more I would earn. And as I said, I was a piano player. I really never went to college because I got married so young and had so many kids. And I really wanted to do something that would be more time for myself and my kids, because I love being a dad and being there for them. And I didn't want to mortgage my time in someone else's dream. I wanted to build my own. And went to real estate investing like most do that discover it, and started with single families, then went actually into luxury, did luxury flips for a while, which was really neat. I used a technique that I actually ended up teaching for a while, luxury flips. I optioned property. I didn't put them under contract other than with an option. And then I did an auction, sold off the property and the contents inside the property. I actually made money and even imported stuff into a property. So I bring like Rolls Royces, paintings, and sold stuff out of it, and then made money on the stuff that got sold, and sold the property, made 6 figures on that. In 2 deals, I did 7 figures, which was really great. And and then, that was before the crash. Bought a whole bunch of properties using the kind of assets, the kind of lending that was there at that time. I got divorced during early 2000s, got remarried. As I started making more and more money, attracted ladies because I had never had money before, and I hadn't had lots of money, and I was flashing money around, and my objective was how much money can I make, and that was really my focus. And attracted people around me that also enjoyed that focus. Yeah, amassed close to 600 houses, single families, just before the crash. Bought properties. If you guys were around during that time, or anyone else listening, you could sign on a property and they just give you a mortgage, no docs, no verification, ninja loans. They're called ninja loans. And we're pulling out $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a deal. Did as many of those as I could. Then went into super jumbo, where I could pull out $100,000 a deal. Saved up as much cash as possible, and by 2007, just before the crash, I had about $11 million saved up from all the transactions I had done, and I was really frugal. And in '09, my then new spouse doing a speech in the UK, in London. I got home and she had taken all the money, disappeared to South America with another human being, and then went homeless. So I had to start all over again. It was a very difficult time, actually. Was pretty suicidal. I actually tried to kill myself, honestly. Was extremely depressed, and it was a really dark time for me. And a homeless person, of all people, gave me some advice that I actually ended up listening to, and which is just wear red socks, which is the weirdest thing in the world. It'll be an hour conversation, but for those that are interested, if you find me, you'll hear the story. And I realized at that point that it wasn't money that was the most important, it was people. And from that point, from 2009 to today, my focus is no longer about how much money I can make, but how much I can serve. And I went from being all about money to all about service, and have built up processes and systems, and try to attract people that also want to learn how to serve and get wealthy at the same time. And now we're doing about 1,500 units a year, by hotels, apartment buildings, mobile home parks, storage unit facilities, basically anything that can be third-party managed. I don't want to deal with Jerry Springer tenants ever. And we really enjoy helping those that really need a quick sale. We marry that with something called asset-based lending, which is not credit-based, which means anyone from any walk of life, from anywhere in the world, no matter what your credit is or isn't, can tap into and buy anything as long as there's some equity in the property. So it's, so there it is. There's the 2-hour, 16-minute spiel.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack with that for sure.
There's a lot of unpacking right there. Pack your bags.
I love it.
And that's the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
No, we're gonna dive in deeper, of course.
No, that was about 6 minutes of going through a couple of decades of a lot of ups and downs, and
that's 24 years in a snapshot. Yeah.
So I hope everybody just caught on to everything he was saying. But if you didn't, let's go back just a little bit. So Carlton Sheets, tell us about. Do you remember? I know this is 24 years ago that you bought a program off the TV airwaves.
Yes, when there was just a handful of channels. Yes.
Okay, and what was this program like? Was it like a physical cassette tapes that you had to watch when they sent them to you?
Yep, books and tapes. This is before DVDs, and CDs. So yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from that?
That it was possible to do that. It was possible to create wealth without having money. It took skill. Skill was the most important thing, not money.
I know this was a while ago, but do you remember your ex-wife at the time, if she was on board with what you were doing?
Not at all. No. The course was Basically, it was either get through the end of the month or get this class.
Got it. Okay. So you had to take a pretty big, you had to sacrifice a lot, take a big risk, and surprise, surprise, your ex-spouse wasn't on board.
She wasn't. And she, as I started traveling and as I started growing as a human being and learning about more things, it created a rift between us. And we're still very good friends to this day, by the way. She's the mother of my kids, and I have a lot of respect for her. She's an alpha woman. She's a very powerful woman. And I was a stay-at-home dad, and if I wanted $5 and I asked her for it, she said no, and it was okay. That was the dynamic that we had. And I was not the same person then that I am now. I've done a lot of self-growth and development, and it really created a difference in our relationship, but I was a better human being and better dad and a better provider for my kids for it. So it wasn't really a risk. It was more of a risk doing the same. I knew that if I didn't do something with my life, I would be doomed for the rest of my life. So to me, it wasn't a risk, it was a necessity.
Okay. So you had the why, and you got the program. What was it that this program taught you that you implemented?
I did lease options. I did a lot of sandwich lease options at that time. I would lease a property with an option to buy it, and then I would sandwich myself in, get a deposit. And I did about 100,000 in 90 days. I was very aggressive at it because I had all I had was time, and I just needed money like I needed oxygen. So I bought a lot of, and it was a lot of sandwich lease options. I think I did. I don't want to lie. I don't remember the exact amount, but I did a lot in 90 days. Like it was actually, when I learned about subject twos, taking over debt, I'm not sure how sophisticated the audience is, but you take over debt. So Garden St. Germain Act allows you to put properties into a trust, not trigger the due on sale clause, and you can just take over someone's debt, not assume it, be responsible for it, but you can take it over. And when I discovered that I could have a mortgage that I could pay for and own a property, holy shit, like I just wanted to buy as many as I could. So I did 119 of those in 1 year, only made money on 2. And I made a lot of promises I couldn't keep, pissed off a lot of people. And one thing that as you start learning, it's not how many deals that you do, it's how profitable they are. So it's better to do 0 deals than it is to do one bad one, because a bad deal will really, really suck up a lot of your life. It's worse than a bad marriage. So yeah, and doing 117 of those was a real lesson. So I learned very quickly what not to do. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what did you learn not to do? Just take any deal that came your way?
Yeah. You have to be selective. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. It's a lesson in life in general.
What was the biggest problem with these transactions that you took on? Were they just not cash flowing?
Yeah, upside down, or made promises to the seller that I couldn't keep. Took over their debt and promised the money later that would be impossible to do. If the property's worth $300,000 and you're buying it for $400,000, you can't make that up in volume. It's the money's made up on the buy, and so most. Especially in the last economic cycle that we were in, that started ending in June of 2022, as the interest rates started going up, so many people bought property just to buy it, right? And a lot of people have forgotten that you have to buy it right. And that's in residential, commercial, anything, Costco, I love Costco. I'm a little weird when it comes to Costco because I like it so much. But if you wanted to buy a Costco yourself or own a Costco or however that worked, if it was possible, you can't buy your product at Costco. You have to buy it below wholesale. And our product is real estate or cash flow. So you have to get it at the right price or you're in for a very expensive lesson, which is time and money. It's not just, time is much more valuable than money.
Can we go back to the lease options real quick before we jump to subject 2? Yeah. So I'm assuming when you say you did 100 grand in 3 months, does that mean like that's how much you collected in the like non-refundable considerations? Okay. How did a lot of those deals play out? Did they work out well?
Yeah. They those I did well. Surprisingly, I'm amazed. I lucked out on that. Well, if not when I have a podcast, and I went to jail on one of them, only because I didn't do things correctly. But it was my fault. It was not that lease options did it. I did it wrong. Take full responsibility on that. But yeah, you basically.
Can we talk about that?
We can. So there was a retired police officer from Chicago that gave me a $8,000 deposit. He wanted to renovate the property and do things. I said, do whatever you want. As long as you're not damaging the property and it's approved. And I got an $8,000 deposit from that guy, and he paid 1 month and then didn't pay the second month. And at that time, I didn't know how to be forceful or enforce. I didn't want to hurt their feelings or, create waves or, just I was very green in how to manage tenants. And as you know, if you don't manage tenants, then tenants will manage you. I didn't understand that getting a property management company would be a better choice than trying to do things myself. And the guy lived in the same, there was a property that I bought in the same community that I was actually also living at the time, but going back and forth from Canada to Florida. And anyway, he didn't pay number one, number two, and then finally, and I had to pay the owner of the property, even though he's not paying, I still had to pay.
Because you were leasing the property from the owner, right?
Correct.
And then subleasing essentially to this guy. Okay.
Yeah, sandwich. It's a sandwich lease option. Yeah.
So what did you do wrong that you actually had to go to jail over this?
So kept not paying, and then I said finally, like, listen, this is killing me because I didn't have very much money, and I really needed to pay, like, get some money back here from the outgo that I was having. And I basically said, listen, if you don't pay like now, I'm going to have to, evict you. He says, well, why don't you come over? I have something for you. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay. So I drive over to his property. He lets me in. And he basically says, listen, I did some research. You don't even own this property. You're a scam artist. And then he started like pounding on me, trying to beat the shit out of me. And I was alone, and his wife was there. It's like, kill him, get him. That motherfucker, I don't know if I can say that, but anyway, he was very, very, very angry, and so was his wife. So defended myself, and actually was on the Canadian Judo Olympic team, so I can handle it. I was surprised. I basically threw him over my shoulder and put on the island in the kitchen, and it collapsed, and I started running out of there, and then I heard 2 gunshots and ran out. I was terrified. I've never been in a situation like that in my life. Finally got home. I was shaking so much adrenaline. I called the police. I'm like, I've just been attacked. And the 911 operators like, settle down, what's going on? And as I'm on with the 911 operator, I see a cruiser go by my house, and I stopped the cruiser, and I said, oh my gosh, I've been attacked, can you help me? And he says, are you Marco Kozlowski? I'm like, yes, I am. I'm like, wow, 911, that was fast. And he puts me under arrest for attacking and trying to kill my tenant.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
So he was a retired police officer, and he knows that whoever calls 911 first is the winner. And I had, I have no idea. So again, I don't know what I'm doing, and I go in the back. Apparently this police officer was a friend of his as well. And I'm in the back of the cruiser, and he's like, hey, where you from? Oh, I'm from Canada. I says, do you own this house? I said, no, it's a sandwich lease option, blah, 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 blah. So I'm explaining, just like I am now. And I get processed in the jail, and apparently the police officer says, yeah, he said that he was a flight risk. As soon as he gets out, he's going to Canada. He shared that that he doesn't own the house, and that he, just basically just making me look like, a villain. And the judge basically said no bail, and you're going to stay there for a while. And I'm like, hell, like, what have I done? And I was actually charged with 2 felonies, which is not good, and at all. Charged with 2 felonies. But anyway, finally got an attorney, and at that time I didn't have very much money, and it was a very expensive money I didn't have. And I had just, on the property that I bought, the first property I ever bought was in Syracuse, and I used a private lender, and I bought it right. And I asked the private lender if they could lend me an extra 10 grand, because I got this at like 50 cents on the dollar, so I could take care of the problems I explained. So I got $10,000 to get eventually my attorney that got me bail, that I had to put my property up for collateral, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, now this is before Google existed, and my spouse at the time went through every county record looking for his name and discovered that he had done this to every, like a string of landlords. And there were people that were actually that got convicted. But it happened constantly, over and over and over again. And we basically presented that to the state, and the guy didn't show up to the hearing, and the charges were dropped, and that was that. So Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a real nightmare. And this is the very big, yeah. So yeah, I have stories. I know a lot of stories. I'm talking, dead bodies, 70-year-old ladies stabbing 80-year-old men because they're cheating on them. It's just insane. The things, as you have property, you hear some pretty crazy.
Welcome to real estate investing with Marco Kozlowski.
Beat selling tires, that's for sure.
Yeah, I guess.
So with that, we're going to cut to our commercial of our property manager.
We don't have commercials. Yeah, yeah.
No, just kidding. Everybody get property managers. You don't want to deal with that shit.
100%. Yeah, it was the dumbest thing I've ever done is not get a property manager. It's absolutely insane. You have to.
Yeah, when you fill out, like if you're analyzing a deal, for those that aren't acute to this yet, like there's a spot in these deal analyzers for property management. That doesn't have to be you. If you're not a property manager, then don't just put that expense in and count on it, and it'll make your life a lot easier.
Blanket 10% on that stuff is an easy way to account for that.
Your job should not be managing. It should be finding more assets and more deals so you can make more passive income. You're working on the business, not in the business. 1,000,000,000%.
1,000 bazillion percent for sure.
And even if you only have a few rentals, still, you're not a property manager. You don't know the laws. You don't know the lingo. Just don't do it.
Yeah, so you've got some crazy stories, Marco. Obviously, I'd love to hear all of them, but I think this podcast would be like a 24-hour podcast at that. But I want to talk about how you kind of got to going after that. Obviously, you started with these sandwich lease options. You hit that 2009 crash, like a lot of other investors did. What was your plan? Like, I know it was a really dark area for you, but I want to talk about how you overcame that and what you did to actually get out of that and get yourself in a position where you can be winning and serve others again.
So as I really focused on money, and at that time, my God was my money. Like money, how much money could I make? And my identity had been taken at that point. So some might understand that and some might not, but I identified my ego was, and as I said, my identity was really how much money do I have in the bank? And that's how important I am. And then there was an incident where I realized, as I said, through a homeless man asked me to wear red socks, where I was present in a conversation and I was really from human being to human being, just connecting, and I was giving to give. And the result of me not expecting anything and me just giving honest advice on actually raising kids, because my number one priority was always taking care of my kids. I honestly and authentically told him a problem, and he actually tried to help me solve the problem from also an authentic point of view. And the outcome was completely different than what I was used to. And it was at a time where, like I said, I really wanted to take my own life at the time. It was a very dark time for me. And it changed me in a way that I can't explain, other than I knew that my role at that point was to really find a way to give, and how can I add value versus trying to take something from me, from other people. And it went, so I took 2 steps back, and I was going into like massive foreclosure. I had 100 employees that hadn't been paid. I had the IRS that was up my ass. Like I had a lot of problems going on at the same time. And, I was just not in a good place. And I was like, well, what's happening? Look at my surroundings. Where am I? And at the time, I was living in Las Vegas, and there was, I had contacts at Citibank, Wells Fargo, Chase, and they were selling tapes of single families, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath with a pool for $10,000 to $25,000 if you bought 100 of them. And these were before they hit the market, like the gray area where they're being processed, and as you know, the more things they have on the books, the worse, there's a game to be played. So they look good for their shareholders, investors, blah, blah, blah. And the FDIC specifically, because that's during that time, the FDIC closed down a lot of banks. But anyway, and at the time, the Canadian dollar was worth more than the US dollar, which was very unusual, because usually it's at 70, 80 cents. And so I have contacts in Canada. So I basically picked up the phone, talked to some people that I knew well, and said, hey, here's the opportunity. I'll do all the work. I'll put all the deals together. You get 51, I get 49. You have control to a point, but I'm where it's going to be fair. But I know what I'm doing, you don't, but it's 51% yours technically. So as long as I don't screw it up and I'm doing everything ethically, then I got the reins. I'm driving the car, but at any point, if you want to pull the plug, if I'm not doing something ethical or immoral, then it's yours. Like you even get my 49%. I'll relinquish everything if I'm not doing things correctly. And we bought almost 700 of those, and we sold them anywhere between 300,000 to high sevens. So that got me out of a pickle very quickly. And it's just by serving. So the bank needs to get rid of the property. The person has money that they need to get rid of, and there's never a lack of. There's money everywhere. Like Wall Street has trillions of dollars that are going through it at high velocity, and the only reason Wall Street exists is people have money and they want to make money at it, because money that doesn't work dies. Money dies if it's not used, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So understanding that if I can just put the right deal together and the money's always going to be available, I really started focusing on how can I serve human beings that are going through a divorce or going through a relocation or going through a lawsuit or going through medical issues that really need to offload their asset quickly, and marry that with money that needs to be placed quickly. As long as I have the right checks and balances, then I can do as much volume and scale as much as I want. And that's why we're doing such volume, is because I created processes and systems around locating off-market great assets at the right price, putting that together with money, creating ways of doing that efficiently, quickly, and again, with scalability. And the result is you're helping people and you're getting wealthy at the same time.
So Marco, at the beginning of this topic, you mentioned a term I guess I haven't heard of before. You said these banks had like tapes. You mentioned tapes of properties. What does that mean?
It's like a microfiche. It's like a tape, literally, like it looks like a piece of tape, and there's 100 of them on a tape, and you can buy as many tapes as you want, and that's coming back. Like there's what happened in 09, 07, 08, 09 is happening right now. Like, bank crisis. I've heard this before. Like, this is the same message this is just, let's get the old tape, let's get the old VHS out, or the Betamax. Let's get this old news, right, and just repeat it over here, and then scare the shit out of everybody. And for those that bought property during that time, more money and wealth is always created during scary times than any other time. Like the Rockefellers, the JP Morgan, like if you look at all the wealth and the wealthiest families in the world, always have made the most amount of money during hard times. Great Depression, a lot of wealth was made. And this is high inflation, interest rates really high, the Fed is talking about lowering the rates, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. There's during COVID, no one was working, yet housing was going bananas. It doesn't make any sense if you really think about it, right? It wasn't the right time to buy, it was the right time to sell. But most people bought instead of sold. And now what's going to happen? So anyway, we can talk about that for a long time. Did I answer your question about tapes?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's just a term I haven't heard of before. So thanks for clarifying.
So it sounds like obviously when you do this stuff, you're kind of almost wholesaling, but you're bringing money in. Is that what I heard as well?
We're buying at wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're buying wholesale, but instead of wholesaling, because if you found the deal, might as well fund it. Why would you just give away? You're selling why sell the sheep? Sell the wool.
So these houses, were you just stabilizing them and renting them, or what'd you do with
those 600? Yeah. We stabilized and rented them, and then I realized that I'm doing one transaction and getting one renter, as opposed to doing one transaction and getting 20 renters or 30 renters. So that's when I really started going into multifamily.
So you started in the single family realm, and then you ended up getting into commercial,
like most
obviously,
people
which
do. Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yep.
and that's the transition you're supposed to do. And tell us about that transition if you don't mind. Obviously, when you're starting in single family, did you have a hard time switching your gears into a bigger system, or was it pretty easy just to do that all?
I could lie to you and say it was easy, but I'm not going to do that. I did a lot of really dumb shit when I first started because I didn't know what I was doing. And I learned the mistakes, and I say that in the single family. So I learned those mistakes, and there was a lot of people at that time that were starving to death. And so I took contacts from the communities that I had access to, and I basically paid someone whatever they wanted to teach me how to do it well. And I didn't get one. I got multiple consultants, and I try to, because everyone has an angle, even in any real estate. I don't know how many human beings you've interviewed for your podcast or have talk to in this business, but everyone has like a little slice of a different angle that they're doing that someone else is doing the complete opposite in, right? So I wanted to have that perspective and then see if I could add my own flavor to it. And a lot of things that people were doing they weren't doing it like what really worked for me, which is buying at the right price. Everyone is working on, well, you buy it and then the upside is this. I'm like, well, what about buying it right? Like, very few multifamily or commercial people that I communicate with or are rubbing shoulders with ever buy wholesale. And that blew my mind. I'm like, why? Like, well, because that's just not what we do. I'm like, so then I took that and element and added the understanding the numbers from a commercial side of view, because it's not, you don't go to Zillow and do an ARV and all the other stuff and the Mayo and, whatever, people have learned or not learned. But it's income based versus more, comparables based. But are some comparables feature and elements to it. But cash flow is cash flow is cash flow. If I'm making $100,000 in Los Angeles, or I'm making $100,000 in San Francisco, or I'm making $100,000 in Florida, or in Toadsuck Ferry, Arkansas, it's still $100,000.
Speaking of different markets, what markets did you focus on?
I never looked at markets. I look at cash flow. I don't care about the market. Like I said, $100,000 in Arkansas is cheaper to buy. A building in Arkansas is cheaper to buy in Los Angeles or in Texas. So why if I'm making $100,000 a year and I can buy it for a third of the price and I'm still making $100,000, you want to buy cash flow for as much as possible or the least? So now I'm no longer in the real estate business. I'm in the cash flow business, because cash flow is what puts clothes on the kids, gas in the car, gives you a lifestyle, allows you to do whatever you want. And as long as it's from the United States and it's legal, moral, and ethical, I'm good. And it's third-party managed, like I said. So
since you are open to any and all markets, what's your primary source of getting leads?
Off market, everything's, so there's something called the 5Ds, divorce, public record, people that are going, humans that are in a partnership, they're getting rid of each other, that are liquidating their assets, disease, that's a big one. Number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical problems, medical bills. They think that they have the right medical coverage for whatever affliction that they have, but I don't know if you know anything about medical insurance. It's like having a hospital gown. You only think you're covered. So and someone has cancer and they have to get treatment and they have this building that's and that makes a certain decent amount of income, but they need cash right away. And we're very honest, like, what you want, I get it. That's very close to retail. That's not our bag. And if you want to wait on the market and get what you want, please do that. If you want this money, this is the price to be paid. Like a pawn shop, you go in, you're going to have to give your stuff at a discount, but we close very, very quickly. The hotel that we shared with you just before we started buying a hotel, it's worth about let's call it $2.5 million. We're buying it for $700,000. So we're buying extremely discounted assets and we're moving very quickly in return. So if someone needs a quick sale, we're there very fast. And how we source those leads that's what I kind of teach and help mentor. I don't teach a lot of people. I teach those that put in the work, because it is work, right? It's not like you go online and there it is. There's a place online where you get a list of 100. So we get 125 of those leads. You put them through an email scrubber because you want to get their email. So you're just sending out an email. You're not calling because it's more efficient in time, because time is important to save. You send 100 people an email. From the 100 people, you get 30 people that reply. Some people are going to tell you to fuck off. Those are the ones that you want, because those are the ones that are the most, angry for some. They're not yelling at you. They don't know who you are. And then you make offers to those people that they're all going to say no to. What do you mean? I want a yes. No, you want to know, because if they say yes, you pay too much. Then you figure out what they really need. From what they really need, then you can create and structure a deal that is a no-brainer. Just like this property over here, that's $700,000. I was in North Dakota yesterday, in Minot, North Dakota, or Minot, I don't know how to say it.
Minot.
Minot, yeah. Minot, yes. That's a 240-room hotel. Just to build that, by the way, is like $30 million, just to give you context. Indoor pool, atrium area, just, huge conference center. Its revenue generation right now is about $3 million a year. It generates $3 million. We got it for $3 million. So it's worth, like, we got that for like nothing.
12% rule or 10% rule.
Well, 3 million to 3 million is like,
It's like 100% cash on cash.
yeah, but the net is not going to be that. But the gross to the net is just like, it's just, I don't know if you, where you guys are in the world, but it's, are you in California or where are
We're
you?
in Idaho.
North
Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah. So we're about a day's drive from Minot.
We bought a property in Storm Lake. No, that's not, Storm Lake is not Idaho. Sorry, that's Iowa. Not even close to the same.
I used to live on the East Coast, and people confused Idaho and Iowa like the majority of the time.
Yeah, there's no excuse. I know Idaho is definitely not Iowa. So
That's all good. So I want to talk a little bit about how you invest for cash flow, not markets. As somebody who's looking into getting like into multifamily, that out of state investing, obviously I've zoned in on a couple markets, but what I think you're doing is very fascinating. How would someone like me go into just doing what you do on a very, I know you're doing it at a big scale, but how would someone start doing that?
well, you have two ways of doing it. One is you can try to figure it out yourself and make the mistakes, or you find someone that's made the mistakes and you learn. I teach on the side. That's not my core business. And I mentor, and I don't know if I can do this or not, but I take about 25 people 8 times a year, and I work with someone until they get a deal, period. That's kind of, and I show you how to source the lead, negotiate the lead, make sure you have the right paperwork so you're not using state contracts because they're designed not to protect you as the buyer, but more of the seller and the agent. How to do the due diligence without physically having to go at all and have actually property managers compete for the business and the win. We had 3 property management teams that were there at the same time. The only reason I went on this particular one is my student insisted to go see it, and I'm like, well, fine, I'll get some video footage out of it. So that's what we did. But you never physically have to go. And most of my followers are actually not in the US. They're all over the world. So you don't have to physically go there. So that's the best way, just because, and it's not expensive. I just do it because I enjoy seeing people grow. The other way is you can go and you can Google, for sale by owners, what you're looking for, and then I highly recommend making offers that are very, very low, expecting a no, and then having fun with. Then once they say no, asking questions as to what they really need, because most people will ask for whatever they want, but want and need are not the same thing. So if you understand how to separate that, then you can have honest conversations about how to help and serve them at the highest level.
That's really good. Nick, anything you want to add on that?
No, that was a lot, but I think you answered all the questions within
I'm sorry, Nick.
your
I'm sorry.
explanation.
No, you're good.
No.
I think it's really cool because, again, like I said, for somebody looking at this kind of thing, it is cool to have kind of a beacon of what you would be proposing, obviously. And at the end of the show, we'll get some more information for you for how people can find out more about how to get into your mentorship or how to ask you questions and everything like that. As far as like setting up a team, and you're obviously all over the nation and everything like that, do you have any advice on setting up a team for somebody, getting your contractors, your lenders, your property managers in place?
Just make sure you're asking the right questions, number one, and make sure that they're service oriented versus how much can I get oriented. So I learned a long time ago that if their level of integrity is how much money can they make, or if you call them and they say they're going to call you back at certain times and they don't, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I noticed that if I'm getting a property management team, I'm asking them something and I have to keep haunting them and I'm chasing them to give them money. How are they going to be when they're giving me money?
Sure. That's really good advice. Thank you.
It's yeah. So make sure you're just aware of their behavior now is going to be consistent throughout the project. So be careful.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tell sign of what people are going to be doing, obviously, because like you said, if you're chasing around a phone call just to try to give them money so you can help them grow their business and they're not answering your phone call, you might want to check about different options for sure.
So Marco, as a real estate investor, it sounds like you have a lot of experience hiring people and having employees. And then obviously you went through a crash. Your ex-wife stole all your money. I'm assuming you lost some people there at that point.
Yeah, I had a call center. I used to, because people's Achilles heel generally is negotiation. So I created a whole call center so we'd negotiate deals for them, and long time ago. And I have 0 employees now, just so you know, 0. So in my real estate business, I own different Right. In a hotel, you have to have employees. I own a series of bars as well that I only got in the bar business because I had hotels that didn't, that had a bar, and I didn't know how to use anything about the bar business, so screw it, I'll learn the bar business. But uh, as far as advice with, be as lean and mean as possible, but you don't have to have an employee that you have to take care of all the time. You just need the right people. A great book I recommend is Who, Not How. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but it's just getting the right who's in your life that are really good at what they do, and just don't micromanage them and just let them shine. Your business will automatically grow because you have the right who's in your life that are really understanding what to do, so you don't have to do it.
Yeah, because so I'm 12 years into this now as a real estate investor and an agent and all that stuff. And a couple of years ago, I went through a big growth phase where I thought I had to hire all these people, hired contractors, hired an assistant, hired project managers. Um, and what I learned, yeah, ouch, is what happened. I went through a really difficult year last year of having to let a lot of people go. A lot of projects did not go the way I thought they would. But I'm starting to realize now, I think it's really about, you got to lead with revenue. And there's a lot people can do for you without being an employee. Like you can leverage your title people, people at the office, transaction coordinators that only get paid if a deal closes. There's all these people out there that can still help you without having to cost, that you don't pay by the hour if nothing happens. Can you speak to that at all? Am I crazy, or am I starting to pick up on something?
As a real estate agent, you're not paid by the hour, are you, to work for somebody?
No.
So why should any other business be the same? And you can have 17 agents under you if you're a broker. It's not monogamous as a relationship, right? You can have as many brokers as you want. So it's scalable at that point because anyone that works gets paid, and anyone that doesn't, see you later. That's the jungle. So you can do the same thing in your business. You can have those that really understand how to do things, that market, for example, and they get a piece of anything that they find. And then you have people that can negotiate the deal based on that, and they get a piece of whatever they find, whatever they receive. And then you have the closers that can close, and because the acquisition skill set is very different than the minding of the business mindset, right? Because there's finders, minders, and grinders, right? Finders are different than the minders, and they're different than the grinders, but you need all three in a good business. And there's a way of structuring the business where you can have, because right now I have the fewest employees. Like I can't have a 1099 as someone that's cleaning rooms every day, or that's a bartender. I can't, because it's the IRS wouldn't let me, right? So in your real estate business, there's no reason to have an employee. Even your VA can be paid on performance. So you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. And cash flow would be so much better, because if they're not working, if they're not performing, why should they be paid? Why should you be taking care of someone that's not taking care of themselves and the customer? Because at the end of the day, if they're not doing anything, they're really not, it's not you that they're hurting. They're hurting those that we're not helping, if you really think about it. Those that deserve the help of having their property purchased or listed or whatever's going on, right? They need a service, and if they're not being communicated to properly, then you're failing them. We have a responsibility to help those people.
Yeah. Now, Marco, before the show, we obviously talked about you've done a lot of different deals. You're doing about 1,500 units a year from what you told us. You've done a lot of different strategies. What is your favorite? I know you've been in trailer parks and hotels and duplexes. I know, and again, you said you're looking for cash flow, not markets, but is there a niche that you're kind of trying to dive into right now?
So my strategy to acquire is always existing cheap debt. That's my favorite. And commercial debt is not the same as residential debt, because you have the Garn-St. Germain Act that helps us do it legally. In anything over 5 units and above, that doesn't apply. So I love taking 2.5% debt with 8 years left on it. It's all principal, and most people don't know that you can actually take it over. In fact, I'm explaining to the title company what to do, because this is not something that they see on a daily basis, right? So it's really neat to be able to give the seller some cash, and have your cash and your net after debt service could be, let's say, I'm going to use numbers that are hopefully not too scary. Let's say you have $122,000 left after all the debt's paid, and you're giving the seller $100,000 in cash to walk away. So you're giving $100,000, which I will be delighted to help you. I'll give you the money. So money is available. If it's making $122,000 a year, and it's paid off in 8 years. How it works is you don't pay after a certain amount of time, then the lender gets the deal, and you actually pull money out of closing. So I'll even give you $150,000. You keep, $28,000, put it in your pocket, enjoy your life. And I'll give you 150, and then you're making $100,000 every year on that money, which is infinite returns for you. All right, you got to pay whatever the interest rate is on that, but you're definitely making a lot more money than I am, right? And I used somebody else's money. And you're making a shite ton of money taking over debt and giving someone cash. So that's my favorite, and it's a quick transaction. I bought probably about 30 hotels that way. Yeah, it's my favorite by far.
I bought a property subject to once. Somebody that was they were getting foreclosed on a Tuesday, and I heard about it on a Saturday, and I was going to a wedding that day, and sent it over to a friend of mine that kind of knew the area. I'm like, hey, what could this rent for? And saw that, what their payment was and what it could rent for. There was a difference of like $800 a month. And on that, we met that Monday. We got got the quick claim signed over and got their loan reinstated by the end of the day. And we owned the house by the end of the day. And we saved them from foreclosure. We've owned that house for 4 or 5 years now. And it has lots of equity.
You can't get that same debt right now at the bank because I guarantee a loan's probably 2, 1.5%, 3%.
Yeah, it was in the threes.
Good luck getting a 3% mortgage right now. And if you know how mortgages work, the first third is all interest because banks know that you're selling the property within the first 8 years in most cases, the first 7 to 8 years, which is all interest payment, which means that they're designing you to sell the house with almost nothing paid off so they can lend more money later. The banks have created their own economy, right?
Yeah. And as a real estate agent, we know that the average person moves every 5 to 7 years. So, and everybody focuses on these 30-year loans is what they want. But on average, every 5 to 7 years, a new loan's, refinanced or.
And you're basically never paying your property off because that's the bank is designed it that way. But we can talk.
That's why they have tall buildings.
They got tall buildings because they know their shit. That's for sure. So going forward, Marco, do you have any plans or goals for the next 5 to 10 years? Anything you're trying to shoot for? Anything you're trying to achieve that you'd like to share?
I've really achieved everything I want to achieve from a financial standpoint. My kids now, my oldest son, he's gonna have a baby. I have 30-year-old kids now because I got married very, very young. As I said, I'm 50 and my kids are almost all 30, which is bananas. And I really just want to help as many human beings as I can. And like I said, I teach on the side because I enjoy giving to give. And I only want to handle about 25 people at a time because my ego is tied to result, not just giving the information. I really want people to action the information. And I really do what I love and love what I do. And my goal is just to be the best human being that I can, read a book a week, travel as much as I can, spend as much time with my family and loved ones as I can. I tithe 10% back to everything that I do to different projects and different charities. I just really have a blessed life, and I really am open to doing anything that's just a lot of fun and different. I like to experience different things. So I don't really have my 5 years from now, I want to do this. I have everything that I want and need, and it's a great question. It's just my drive is really just I want 1 million people at my funeral, and you're all invited. So yeah,
Good.
I'll be there.
you're invited. Yeah, and be in 200 years. So
sure. Yeah. We're gonna live forever, right? Nothing can happen to us. I love it.
Yeah,
So
nothing's ever gonna happen.
Marco, this has been great, by the way. Before we end, we are going to get into some wind down questions. Nick, did you have anything you wanted to touch on before we got that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's get to those questions.
Okay. And again, this has been a really cool conversation with you, Marco. I've loved hearing just where you've been and where you've came from and what you've overcame at the same time, because it is a really cool story knowing that you can lose everything. I know you've had some really dark times, but you're a very blessed individual right now. You're living the life you want, and you've got the things you want, and it's really cool to hear and see you shine with that. So again, like I said, we'll do some wind down questions. These are pretty easy wind down questions, but I know you said you read a book a week, but if you had one business or investing book you recommend every single investor read, what would it be?
I'm going to call The Four Agreements. It's not an investing book, but it's a really great book on. I don't know if you've read that book, but
it is on my list. I bought it on Kindle recently, but I am 100 books deep. I will move that up.
100% recommend that book. It's a book that I read at least every year one more time, and every time I read it, I get something out of it because it really will change. who you are as a human being and how you perceive yourself and how you react, because at the end of the day, the only thing you can control is yourself, no matter what. And no matter what the economy is doing or not doing, if you know how to really control and master yourself, you're set for life. And that's a really great start.
I love it, and that's a really small book too. I've heard it's one that people will read every single year, just because they continue getting something out of it. So I will bump that up my list for sure. The next question, I don't know if it's going to be really relevant to you, knowing that you have everything you want. But if you had $30 million gifted to one of your bank accounts, what would be the first thing you spent it on?
Just 30?
Yeah, just 30. Yeah, I keep the same question for everybody, so it's all the same.
No, no, okay. I'd probably do something charitable. I'd figure out who needs the 30 the most and take it from there. I'd probably give most of it away.
I love it. That's great. Good answer. What advice would you give newer investors looking to get started on their first or second deal?
Don't be needy. Realize make sure that you understand the big picture, that you're really in the service business, not how much money you can make business, and be honest. I know so many people that get into, I never got into wholesaling because I never saw the point of getting rid of the sheep, just sell the wool. But you can get a property cheaper than someone else will if you have a level of integrity where they want to do business with you. We're underbidding people all the time and getting the property because they know that what our values are and what our purpose is. It's not always about money, because if you think it's always about money, no one would ever get divorced. I don't know if you've ever been divorced, but it's extremely expensive, and the only ones that win are the attorneys. So it's not always about money. And if you were given $30 million in your bank account tomorrow, but you knew that you would be dead tomorrow if you took it, you wouldn't take the money. So time is more valuable than
Interesting.
money.
I love that. Very good. This next question, I'm very interested to hear your take on it too. How do you define success?
Happiness and wealth and time and money, both. So if you're a very happy person and you are wealthy, because you can be wealthy with $100 in your bank account. If you have the time and enjoyment and if you divorce stress and you realize that money is actually everywhere, and if you understand how money works and master that and master yourself, you really don't need a lot of money. The more things you own, the more things own you. So, I've gone through a lot of phases of, I wanted to have the Ferrari of 2 different colors, and I wanted to impress, I wanted 3 women at the same time. And, I lived in Steve Wynn's old house with bulletproof glass, and you had to get through 3 guard gates to get there. It's like 32,000 square feet. I've lived a very opulent life, and I've had a lot of really neat things. And I thought I was happy until, as I said, my ego was driven by how much money I had. And people say I lost everything. What I lost was my mind. And because of that, and if you lose your mind, then it's really over. And as soon as I realized that I can still serve and help, doesn't matter how much money you have, you're fine. So you get to a place which is very interesting, a very zen place. Anyway, again, longer conversation for another time.
No, yeah, absolutely. Next question is, when you're not investing in real estate, what do you like to do with your free time?
I like to read. I like to, I usually start businesses, and I like to serve. I like to help people that really need help. It's very fulfilling. I enjoy spending time with my kids. I like to travel. I'm going to Japan for 3 weeks with my kids in May. So, I just, do what I want to do,
That's
whatever I want.
super cool. I love it. Next question for you. It's the last one, Marco. Where can people find out more about you, or if they're interested in your mentorship, where can they, get in touch with you to learn more about that?
Well, yeah. So, Big Fat Real Estate Checks is my podcast. Big Fat Real Estate Checks, not Chicks. That's a completely different podcast.
Real estate.
Completely different. If you want to hear,
That's my homepage.
nice, noise. You can go to also my Instagram. I have live deals that are being done constantly. Marco.Kozlowski. If you can say it, Marco.Kozlowski on Instagram. You can actually see a couple deals that we did yesterday and today. Yesterday's deal it's worth about $30 million. 15 and a half the way it is, but 30 technically. Got it for 3.1. Really, really great deal. So, just Marco Kozlowski or Big Fat Real Estate Checks, and you'll learn a lot of free content on that. And I don't mentor unless we work together a little bit first. I have a 3-day experience. I don't really call it a class, where I hold you accountable, teach you some things, and it'll help you until you get a deal. And if that's something that you want to do, and it's buying cash flow, and that's the most important thing. So I show you how to put it all together. It's forbidden to use your own money to buy it. It's forbidden to use your credit. Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter what your background is. As long as you put the effort in, you'll get a result.
Awesome. Do you have a real estate page as well, Marco? Or a YouTube page, I'm sorry?
I think it's the same, Marco.Kozlowski.
Okay,
I don't know,
perfect.
just Google my, I don't know. That's a great question. I
Google
should
the
know
name,
this.
we'll figure it all out. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll put it all in the
It's-
show notes and
It's your
everything
name.
like that too.
It's
so.
your name.
Nick was there earlier, so yeah.
I don't know. I have a team for that. Social media is like a full-time job. It's really funny because I did first time I did a Instagram live yesterday, because my team's like, you got to do a live Instagram. I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I can't figure out how to turn the camera off. So the last minute is like me trying to figure it out.
What am I doing here?
Literally, it's
That's
funny.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Marco. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here, sharing all your
my
wisdom, your knowledge, your stories. Thanks for letting it all loose here. Appreciate it.
All you G Willikers, you're welcome.
All right. All right, everybody. We'll see you at the next episode. Catch you later.
Thanks.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.